When I put the shoe up to my ear, a little voice says, "Be more timely with your shoe reviews." Hey everyone, Matt here with Doctors Running, and today we're going to do a video review of the New Balance Fuel Cell Rebel version 2. This is a shoe I did not expect to like, but ended up liking. I didn't think it was going to work with my mechanics, and there's some interesting factors that actually make it sustainable for me. That's probably not the right word. David has a great review on Doctors Running, a written one, and I would suggest taking a look at that as well for somebody with a little bit different mechanics from me. But this one worked well. And I never tried version 1 because I was like, ooh, that's not going to work. And then Running Warehouse and New Balance sent us a couple pairs of these. And I went, well, I have to review this since they sent it to me, and worked pretty well. So not going to work for everybody, but going to work very well with a unique purpose for many, many people. So let's dive into this. Very excited to talk about this one. You're going to see the stats here right in the corner. So for a men's size 9, it weighs 7.2 ounces. If I remember correctly, women's size 8 is 6.2 ounces. There's a 30 millimeter stack height in the heel, 24 millimeters in the forefoot with a 6 millimeter drop. For my size 10, I measured it at 7.6 ounces, which is pretty light, lighter than most of the super shoes that we're getting right now and a lot of the racing shoes. So they're probably a dual purpose that we'll talk about. In regards to starting out, fit wise, it does fit kind of classically New Balance. There's a little extra room. And I always find that New Balance shoes taper a little quick for me on the lateral toes. So it's pretty classic. There's a surprising amount of room here. So people with narrow feet may have a little extra room up front. Those with normal width feet should be totally fine. I think they have a width of this, but I don't know if that's necessary unless you have super wide feet. The heel is fairly normal. Midfoot is fairly normal, just a little bit more room in the forefoot. Security is pretty good. I didn't have to lace lock this. I also can't, I don't think, yeah, you can technically. I just laced the last eyelet there. I didn't realize that. But yeah, didn't have any major issues with security. Could still pick up the pace and turn and not have too much trouble, at least from the upper. Yeah, very comfortable. I've actually been able to wear this sockless, so it's about fun, like also casual shoe I've worn around without wearing socks and not have any trouble. The upper is really comfortable. There's no major seams that I'd be worried about. So great job here, New Balance on the upper. It's super light, like you can actually see through it. It's that light, which again contributes to a very airy feel. Laces are perfect. I can tighten them and they don't push on my foot at all. So it's very nice. Overall, really good upper. There is technically a heel counter. I don't feel it at all. It's very flexible. So those with sensitivity to that, you are not going to have to worry at all. The sole is my second experience with Fuel Cell. My first one was in the Fuel Cell RC Elite 1, and I have version 2 that will do a video review of well, and I also have a written review of this up on the website. We'll get to this soon. But this was the second Fuel Cell. No, third, that's not true. I tried the Prism as well, but this is the softest one I had felt at that time before this. The foam is so soft, even though it's much closer to the ground than a lot of shoes out there, it's still really bouncy. I can run pretty fast in that. When I do, it does, I wouldn't say bottom out, but I get a little bit better ground feel. And it's just a really soft ride. I was very nervous starting to run in this because I'm like, this is not going to be stable enough, but there again, we'll talk about some features in the stability section about what made it like more neutral than unstable. There's some interesting mechanics of this in terms of performance. So the foam is so soft. Yes, there is a solid heel bevel here. I think even if there wasn't one, the foam would compress enough it wouldn't cause any problem. There's a little posterior flare here, but again, the bevel totally offsets that. So super, for those rear foot strikers, super smooth landing. It really feels almost like I'm kind of kept a little bit laterally, and I'm noticing that with some shoes where they're doing, as I have suggested, although they're not probably listening to me, that a posterior lateral bevel is better because that's where you land. But for me, it feels very direct where I'm landing out here and it rolls me in and keeps me in that direction. That might also be due to something we'll talk about in the stability section. The ride is consistent throughout. It's very soft. So very soft landing, soft midfoot as you transition through. And the forefoot is interesting because of this large lateral flare out here that it feels like I'm being pivoted off, like kind of being directed toward the medial side as I get to the forefoot. And the forefoot is also protective, soft, and it's nice and flexible. And there's just a really solid, smooth toe off. Those people that need an excessive amount of toe spring, yes, there's toe spring here, but there's a ton of flexibility here. So just be aware that if you like that, it's going to be great in this shoe. If you don't like that, it may not be the shoe for you. But lots of flexibility, which is rare for shoes now these days. But super soft, little lower to the ground, and very flexible all around. So not a ton of structure. In terms of performance and use, I've used this for some shorter runs. Some of the best purposes I found for this has been tempo runs. I'm trying to pick up the pace. And I think some people would be able to use this as a racing shoe. People that don't want carbon plates or any plates in there and just want a super soft, flexible ride. This shoe has some bounce and it feels pretty good picking up the pace. I would say it doesn't feel as good when I'm trying to go really fast. So maybe mile pace or like trying to run 300, something like that. The foam tends to not respond quick enough for me. It's very soft and protective. It's my same experience with this one, where this is definitely a marathon shoe. This would be your like maybe 10K half marathon shoe, your tempo shoe, your workout shoe for longer intervals. If something faster, for like faster workouts, I would want something a lot more snappy than this, but the foam does provide a nice bounce that really lends itself to more up-tempo running. So if you'd like a lighter shoe, very good option for tempo runs, especially if you want to feel the ground. I think the other option is those people running in, say, like track spikes, or people that are running track or in cross-country spikes. This would be a really nice road shoe to use for tempo runs if you're trying to keep yourself used to something slightly close to the ground, this being relative, compared to going, oh, I'm going to do my workouts in this and then go to a very stiff spike. So interesting shoe, but again, I don't think this is a daily trainer for most people. I think people have asked that question, but unless you are used to super light shoes and you want something more minimal and flexible, this is not a daily trainer. It's going to be more of your up-tempo or workout shoe or day when you're going to go a little bit faster. All right, now durability, I almost forgot. Durability has actually been pretty good. I have 35 miles on these and have not managed to chew through the outsole yet. I am known on this website as the destroyer, and the heel area on my left foot is still, not my left foot, on the left shoe is still intact, which usually is a telling sign of how the durability is going to be. And durability is great. Fuel cell seems to last for a while. I have like 60, 70 miles on these, and it has not bottomed out at all. These are the same way. So I think midsole durability seems to be really high, and the outsole is going to get you a lot of miles out of these. So I was very impressed, as I was not expecting that at all, especially with the softer midsole. So good job, New Balance, on that. Now, the stability section. So this is definitely not a stability shoe, but it's not unstable. It's definitely in that middle ground, neutral, but there's some interesting elements that will guide you in certain directions. So obviously the lateral heel bevel guides my foot down. I can feel that. And the other thing that contributes to that is in the last video, hopefully last one that we just talked about, Nathan and I talked about how shapes can definitely influence the structure of a shoe. So there's this thing right here, and the Saucony Kinvara has also done this. I can feel this. Normally I'd be like, this softness, I'm not gonna do it, but I can feel this pressing up into the medial side of my foot, not in a bad way, but when I compress it down, I definitely notice that there's something like giving me a little extra oomph in the medial aspect. I'm not going to say arch support because I hate that word or that phrase, but it definitely provides a little guidance more toward the lateral side. So a lot of factors in the heel and forefoot that might keep you out this way just a little bit. This is not extreme. So those with like high level like stability needs, this is not a good shoe for you. Those people with neutral mechanics or people that are sensitive to being pushed this way, again, there's a little bit of that. So just be aware. When you get to the forefoot, it's the exact opposite. So something that is unique to the Fuel Cell Rebel series, as well as the Fuel Cell RC Elite 1, which totally changed in version 2, is this big lateral sole flare. And again, I think I talked about this in another video, but I was under the impression this was designed for Jenny Simpson because she's a very heavy forefoot striker, to provide some lateral flare to guide her a little bit medial. So I can feel this as I feel the lateral bias here at the heel and midfoot. And then as you get to the forefoot, it definitely starts pivoting you a little bit more medial. It's not extreme, right? Because it's not a post, but it definitely pushes you in a little bit more. So those people who tend to, when they transition and they toe off far too much in inverted position, which can certainly stress some structures. So you can overwork the inverters, you can overstretch the everters doing this direction. So if that's a problem for you, this is a good shoe for you, as well as the RC Elite 1 if you're interested in racing. Not a ton of shoes out there on the market like this. However, if you're a heavy forefoot striker and you are sensitive and don't have very good eccentric control of pronation, meaning, again, both heel and forefoot strikers can pronate. You land on the lateral aspect and then you roll in like this. But when you're going this direction, those muscles that normally do this are being lengthened while they're contracting. That's called an eccentric motion. That is the most tension you can put through muscles and tendons. If you've got good strength through those tissues, you'll be fine. But if you're not used to that, that excessive load can certainly put you potentially at risk for some problems. So if you are a heavy forefoot striker, you may want to make sure you're working on your eccentric calf stuff, just because we do know that excessive uncontrolled pronation can be a risk factor for Achilles issues. We already had a couple people actually reach out going, hey, why am I getting some mild Achilles problems in this shoe? I'm a heavy forefoot striker. I'm not a heel striker. It doesn't matter. It does a little bit, but there's many different things that contribute to Achilles problems. That's what actually my PhD dissertation is on. So yeah, that's an interesting factor. So it will help guide you this way, but people that are sensitive to lateral sole flare should be careful with this one. You should ease into it, as our suggestion is with most large changes in shoes. But the softness of the sole does not make this a stability shoe. I think if it was firmer, this might be like almost mild stability, but the softness definitely neutralize it. But it's not super unstable, but it's definitely the midline. There's some factors that provide stability, but the softness offsets that. So those are actually goes into my thoughts as a DPT. I like shoes like this, not for me, but for certain patients, as I talked about those people that have some not instability issues, but some tracking problems, I would say, at the forefoot as they toe off. Those people that tend to toe off very much into an inverted position as they go off. And some of the people that will have problems with their overstretching their peroneal muscles, which are the muscles on the side of the leg, and the foot. So this is something that as they're transitioning will pivot them a little bit more to the medial side. It can help provide some guidance. So I really like shoes like this. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the RC Elite 2 or the RC Elite 1, is another shoe that also has that capability. So if that's something you need, going, hey, can I guide myself a little bit more, especially those people who don't like but need to use the extension of their big toe. A lot of people, this will be a chronic problem if they don't have hallux rigidus yet. And hallux rigidus is where the big toe joint, you lose that mobility, it's super stiff. If you need to keep that big toe moving. And that's where you're really supposed to pivot off from, not this much, but as you're going off, you need to be a little bit more neutral, slightly supine as you go off and pivot off that big toe. You're supposed to have about 60 degrees of extension there. So again, if this is my foot, it's my hand, but just pretend. You need to have about 60 degrees of extension, which is about here, of that big toe joint. If you don't have it going off, that's going to be really difficult. So if you're in rehab and somebody's trying to help you get that extension back, you need to use it. So a shoe like this will actually force you to use it more. So those people that are trying to get motion out of there, which is a good way to better utilize your plantar fascia and to work on what's called the windlass mechanism, which is a nice natural mechanism as part of the forefoot rocker, which is the rocker is your ability to extend your toes and roll off. If you're not having trouble, if your body is trying to avoid that, this is a good shoe that will help keep you off that big toe joint. If you are trying to avoid using that toe joint because you have a problem with your big toe, this is not a shoe for you. This is going to pivot you. It's going to force you onto that toe. And if you're trying to avoid it, this is probably not going to be a good option for you. So it just depends on the person. All shoes, some shoes are going to work for some people, some shoes are not. This is a shoe, one of the many shoes that I use as a clinical intervention for certain people who are having those kind of problems going, hey, I'm going to try to help you get a little bit more medial off the forefoot. Not everybody needs this. If you're a trained rehab professional, then you might understand this more. But I would say if you are not one, I would really highly suggest talking to somebody if this is something you're concerned about. And please get evaluated, right? Internet is not a great place for advice because even here, we don't have access to fully evaluating you. We don't, your medical history. So always make sure you check and make sure, is this advice appropriate for your mechanic? So again, as always, when people ask me, what do you think? It depends. It's a great shoe for certain people. Other people are going to need to be cautious, just like with all shoes. So I don't really have any recommendations for this shoe. I think it fits a very interesting niche of a lightweight trainer that's actually light, that's in the low 7 ounces. It's flexible. There's not a ton of shoes like that on the market. It's got some unique methods of guidance in here that kind of pivot people in certain directions while still being super soft. So I don't really have any suggestions, to be honest with you. It's a great shoe. It's a great shoe for a lot of people. I can't take the shoe very far because it's just a little too unstable for my mechanics, but people are going to enjoy this. And I've already seen a lot of hype around this shoe. And I think New Balance deserves it. They did a really good job with this, and it's a very interesting shoe. So yeah, I honestly would give, I don't have any other feedback. I really like this shoe. And that's, again, so overall, a great up-tempo shoe, a great lightweight trainer for those people who want something slightly closer to the ground with a solid amount of flexibility, not a lot of structure, with a very soft sole. This is going to be not going to be a daily trainer for a lot of people. It's going to be a tempo shoe or longer workout shoe. For people used to more minimal shoes, this might be a trainer. For those not used to it, transition this carefully because there's a lot of flexibility here. So I'm curious to know if any of you have tried this shoe, and please in the comments below, leave your thoughts. What do you think about it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What do you think worked for you? What do you think didn't work for you? And what are your recommendations for New Balance? I really like what they did. It's a great evolution from the first version, and I'm curious to see what they do next with it. So again, leave your comments below. I'm curious to hear your thoughts and if you've tried this shoe. And as always, please leave a comment about what you want us to review next. I'm going to try to do as many video reviews as possible in the next coming weeks, just to get on this horse, as I've been lacking a little bit, but had some nice life transitions at the moment that I need a little distraction. So please, as always, like, follow, subscribe, hit the like button below, please hit the subscribe button below. We have tons of social media places you can take a look at. So obviously we have Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Those are big things. We've got a Strava now, so you can follow us and see what we're wearing. We usually post photos if we can. You can, and if they're prototypes, we won't respond, but we haven't gotten too many of those recently. Tons of other stuff coming on the website in terms of great reviews. We've got some awesome guest reviewers who are posting some really cool stuff, some great thoughts as DPTs coming through. And as always, stick around on YouTube because we're going to have a lot more content on here. So yeah, thanks for watching, and excited to get some more miles on these. Upcoming next, I'm going to do a review of these and these. Keep getting these super cushion shoes. There's definitely a market. So pay attention and come on back, and appreciate you stopping by. That was an awkward ending.